my name's Dave, thanks for joining me, and tonight I'm going to redo one of the videos I've already done twice. You're wondering why? Well, the first one was really quiet, the second one was a lot louder, but I wanted to just go over it again. And it's about nitrogen in tyres. Is it a scam? Well, yes it is. It's firm. What we're up against here is excellent marketing techniques and people who are just so sheep-like that they bleat a lot. Meh. Here are some of the images I found online regarding nitrogen versus air leaking from tyres. They're hugely exaggerated, from molecule size to the amount of nitrogen leaking out. This is excellent marketing, but it is all just lies. It's exaggeration anyway, at least. This is the third video I've made on this subject, and the answer is still the same. However, the internet has changed, and here is why. When I made these three videos, I did the same internet search, but the results have differed as follows. On the first search, when I did the search, I typed, should I fill my tyres with nitrogen? The results I got were mainly tyre companies and possibly one or two magazines, and maybe the odd insurance company, that were all for it. Everybody was for it. Except me. The second search. After the second search and typing the same question, I got a mixed bag. Some for, some one or two against. This time I got a very different result. Many of the results that came back were entirely against it. I still found some that were for it, but the majority are against it. This tells me one thing. People like me who do their research sometimes prior to spending their money have triumphed over the people who don't. Many people have started thinking and stopped bleating like sheep. What I'm seeing is many places that supported this scam are now against it. And I'm putting my hand up and taking full credit for all of that, whether it was me or not. The result may be because of popular demand being not much. For example, how many green tyre caps have you seen? One or two, I bet. In my experience, is no different. And I am often out looking for them, and I never see them. I took on the Jack's tyre empire after I bought four-wheel drive tyres, and they sent me a nitrogen scam email. So I rang them and asked them how many of them believe this scam, and the answer was about half in the office. I have stopped using Jack's tyres now, but not because of this, but I went in to have my wheels aligned after fitting some new steering parts. Their manager, who had walked out the day before, had a stand-in, and they told me they couldn't align my wheels because of the kingpins were worn. The Jackaroo doesn't have kingpins, guys. So was he lying, or could they just not be bothered changing the shims? The latter, I suspect. Anyway, nitrogen in tyres is a scam. Is it a scam? Well, frankly, yes it is. It's full of poor statements, marketing, over-exaggerated images. Let's explore this together and I will make comments as we go along. This is a statement from Tyre Review, an Australian organisation. And there's a link to their website. In an article titled, "Is filling your tyres in nitrogen worth it?" they say, short answer, not really. Long answer, it depends. This is sitting on the fence garbage. And what they should be saying here is no, it isn't, unless you think it is. Let's take a deeper look. Nitrogen in tyres is used frequently in industrial and aerospace applications. Well, that's not true. Aerospace applications, yes, maybe in passenger jet tyres and fighter jet tyres, but there's a reason for that. In fact, regulations stipulate aircraft tyres must contain no more than 5% oxygen due to issues with the braking system, overheating and causing tyre explosions. Nitrogen is used due to the fact it's non-flammable, easy to store, easier to manage and requiring no air compressor and air drying equipment, and it's easy to handle and transport. That 5% oxygen statement is likely correct, however, it is because oxygen feeds fire, not to stop explosions. As any gas welder will tell you, acetylene burns slowly with a lot of smoke, and you cannot weld with it, and then they use oxygen to make the flame fierce. That's why you can you can only use 5% oxygen because oxygen makes a flame really fierce. Did you notice the issue here? The authorities state that you can only use 5% oxygen. They never said what gas you should replace it with. Just said it should only have 5% oxygen. Lastly, unless the leak is severe enough to drastically displace the available oxygen in a breathable atmosphere, it is completely non-toxic in small amounts. I don't know why they've said that. Nitrogen makes up 78% of the air that surrounds us. The remainder is 21% oxygen and 0.9% argon, and the rest is made up of trace gases like carbon dioxide, xenon, neon, and so on. As you can see, the overwhelming majority of air is already nitrogen. So what does this have to do with tyres? We're getting a little sidetracked here, is what they say. What are the myths about nitrogen filling tyres? You won't need to check your tyre pressures. Filling your tyres with nitrogen will dramatically reduce the natural pressure loss that occurs when normal air permeates through the rubber that makes up your tyres. Well, that's just a lie. Technically, this is true. O2 will permeate through the tyre rubber about 3 or 4 times faster than N2, due to oxygen having smaller molecule size than nitrogen, although the size difference is only 2.6%. Technically, this is true and nitrogen will permeate slower, but how much slower is the question. And the statement that 3 to 4 times faster is not true at all. To put things into perspective, a human hair is somewhere between 40 and 300 microns, depending on how thick your hair is. The size of an air molecule is controversial because it is made up of several different gases. However, it is said to be approximately 0.0003 microns. Nitrogen is said to be approximately 0.000142 microns. So the difference between the two is 0.000158 microns, which makes it 52.6%, and approximately half the size smaller, not 3 or 4 times smaller as quoted. 1 micron equals 1,000 nanometers, and the human eye can generally see particles larger than 40 microns. Since 78% of air is already nitrogen, we can say that 78% of that myth is bogus. Whilst this may be correct, that is not what makes it a myth. And then they go on to say, that being said, filling your tyres with nitrogen does not mean you can skip checking your tyre pressures. You will still suffer pressure loss to a varying degree. Lots of factors involved. And pressure ought to be checked every 2 weeks. With gauges being so cheap, you really don't have any excuse. Checking your tyre pressures regularly is the cheapest and easiest way to get most from your tyres. Go into a servo and use theirs. It's not calibrated, but it'll give you a rough idea. I use an aftermarket TPMS to check my pressures, so they are checked every time and regularly as I drive the car. Checking the pressure of tyres regularly completely negates the advantage that nitrogen possibly ever had. Nitrogen reduces internal oxidizing in the tyre. This is not me speaking, this is them. Come on now, nobody has ever replaced the tyre because of the internal surfaces were oxidized. Whilst it is true oxygen is corrosive, in the time it would take to cause any real damage to the tyre would have been worn out, recycled decades prior. Besides, even if tyre oxidation were a real concern, we'd see oxygen affecting the deep layers on the outside of the tyre too, regardless of what the tyre was inflated with. You can inflate your tyre with dragon's breath and it would still be affected on the outside. Nitrogen responds better to temperature changes. False. Both oxygen and nitrogen are ideal gases, which means their pressure and temperature rise thoroughly or roughly at the same rate. We found a good article about how the pressure of different gases change with temperature. Spoiler alert, it does not make any difference. Yes, agreed, this is absolutely false. Their mention of heat expansion is a bit vague, however. Air's thermal expansion is 3.4353 and nitrogen's expansion is 3.4242. If you think you're ever going to be able to measure that, then good luck is all I can say. Now they go on to say the best thing about nitrogen filled tyres is the lack of moisture. Typically, if you inflate your tyres with a simple compressor or handheld pump, you will introduce a small amount of moisture into the tyre, as moisture reacts to temperature changes at a higher rate than air. You could see similar benefits using a compressor with industrial grade air dryer, which is typically out of the price range of the average workshop or home garage. So what is the point? Basically, it boils down to this. For everyday commuter or consumer, filling your tyres with nitrogen is something that has no drawbacks, but has negligible benefits in the real world. And they mean negligible, because there is nothing. All of the benefits an average consumer will get from a nitrogen-filled tyres will be gained by free regularly checking and maintaining correct air pressures. The added benefit of checking pressures frequently is catching leaks and punctures early. If you can get it for free, go for it. Your lap times will thank you. Probably, but I doubt it. If you're asked to pay for it, don't worry about it. Go buy yourself a burger or 4 instead. If you already have a vehicle that has nitrogen-filled tyres, don't worry, you can top them up with regular old air without any negative side effects. The next one comes from the good old USA, and in fact it is Consumer Reports Test. Incorrect spellings corrected, because it's American. Should you use nitrogen in your car tyres? Consumer Reports Test shows that nitrogen is not worth the money or inconvenience. This common pitch is compelling. This is Consumer Reports. Filling your car tyres with nitrogen will reduce air loss, boost fuel economy, reduce rolling resistance, and improve safety. Some cars are even sold with this telltale green caps on their valve stems, signaling that the tyres have already been filled with nitrogen. Must be in America. Dealerships and tyre shops often charge owners to fill tyres with nitrogen at $4 or $5 or more per tyre. This is American. $5 American is about $8. During routine service visits or when replacing tyres, but is nitrogen worth the price? $8, might as well round it up to 10, Australian. Testing conducted independently by Consumer Reports and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration shows the benefits are more theoretical than practical. They are entirely theoretical than practical. First off, dry air is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen and 1% other gases. There's always some water vapor present. The nitrogen used to fill tyres is a processed gas that voids many of the impurities of regular air. But if you plan using it, make sure your retailer removes the original air to ensure the tyre is truly filled with nitrogen. Also, realize how you'd want to top off the tyres with nitrogen in the future. There is no harm in mixing the regular air, but it does defeat the purpose. So let me have a think about this. You go to your tyre dealer, he offers you nitrogen, you say yes. They take the old tyres off, they put the new ones on. It's still filled with 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. If they don't evacuate that atmospheric pressure from the tyre before they fill it, then you're wasting your money. Most of the selling points for nitrogen really relate to maintaining proper tyre pressure, explains Consumer Reports Tyre Program Manager. But do tyres retain their inflation better with nitrogen than regular air? How we tested air loss. Consumer Reports conducted a 12-month study at our auto test centre using 31 tyre models of all-season tyres. The tyres and wheels were purchased new and they were then used for our 16,000-mile tread wear test. We first ensured that we had 95% oxygen purity in the tyre, the claim limit of a nitrogen system, which generates nitrogen gas from ambient air and removes the water vapour. We filled one tyre model with air and the other with nitrogen. Both were filled to 30 psi at room temperature. We set both tyres outdoors for 1 year, then checked the inflation pressure at room temperature again. Both tyres had lost pressure over that time, but the difference was minimal. The average loss of the air-filled tyres was just 3.5 psi from the initial 30 psi setting. Nitrogen-filled tyres lost an average of 2.2 psi. The results show that nitrogen does reduce pressure loss. Well, it must do because they're bigger particles. But the reduction was only 1.3 psi difference from the air-filled tyres over an entire year. Our test showed that while nitrogen has some advantages, both nitrogen and air-filled tyres lose pressure over time. It is important that car owners routinely check their tyre pressure. We have concerns that car owners who use nitrogen might check their tyre pressures less often. That would be a mistake. What the NHTSA found, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the USA. The NTSA study also found that regular air escapes tyres at a higher rate than pure nitrogen does. This government agency concluded that the nitrogen does reduce the tyre degradation by limited oxidization. Oxidization refers to the damage caused by exposing tyres to oxygen in regular air, which can make rubber become brittle. However, this is not a practical concern for the vast majority of consumers because they replace their tyres long before degradation is a problem. In our experience, passenger tyre service life dependent on where, how even it is and how many miles the tyre goes and age. Tyres are designed to be used with air and degradation is not a problem for regular tyres that are maintained properly. Some tyre manufacturers say tyres need to be replaced within 10 years even if they've never been used because of how the rubber degrades over time. The lab report from the NHTSA also found that inflating with nitrogen in place of air had a little or no direct effect on rolling performance. Rolling resistance is a factor in fuel economy and it is something that is part of CR's routine tyre testing. The underlying concern is that under-inflated tyre would have increased rolling resistance, hurting the vehicle's fuel economy. Nitrogen may aid this because it seeps out at a lot slower rate. But with either gas, the tyre's rolling resistance will be maintained with the proper tyre pressure. That means regular tyre checks. The bottom line. As anyone who has had a flat tyre can explain, tyres don't hold up the car by themselves. They need to be filled with air. Pressure changes over time, temperatures affecting the air density and the air permeating the rubber. Check tyre pressures once a month when the tyres are cool in the morning, and top off as necessary with regular air. It's a low-cost way to bolster your car's safety and fuel efficiency. Routine maintenance is critical to long tyre life and good health. Proper tyre inflation is the objective, says Woody Rogers, Vice President at Tyre, a major national tyre retailer. Air works fine and is essentially free. Based on our experience with passenger cars and these test results, consumers would be better served and would save their money by just using air in their tyres and checking them monthly. There is nothing wrong with using nitrogen in passenger cars and trucks, but it does take commitment and potentially cost. Nitrogen users should be diligent about topping off only with nitrogen to ensure they're getting the intended benefits. This is disappointing. This is the Australian Tyre Geek perspective. Nitrogen tyre inflation. Why do it? Pros and cons. I do not want to add any comments to this, but this idiot's lack of understanding just makes my blood boil. Thinking of inflating your tyres in nitrogen instead of compressed air? Will it be more beneficial to your vehicle or not? Let's explore what nitrogen inflation is, the reason behind its usage, and the pros and cons of adopting this method. What is nitrogen tyre inflation? Nitrogen tyre inflation is a process where pure nitrogen gas is used to fill tyres of a vehicle instead of regular compressed air, which contains mix of gases. Nitrogen is commonly used in various industries, including aviation and motorsports, due to its unique properties. In recent years, it has gained popularity in the automotive sector as well. I wouldn't say popularity. Why use nitrogen in tyres? Nitrogen is an inert gas. It means it does not react with another substance. In contrast, compressed air contains oxygen and moisture in addition to nitrogen. Well, you see, this is snake oil because yes, it contains oxygen and moisture in addition to nitrogen. It makes it sound like nitrogen is just a tiny little amount and it's all oxygen and moisture, whereas nitrogen is 78%. Oxygen is only 21% and water is only up to 4%. Oxygen can lead to rubber degradation over time. While moisture can cause corrosion, nitrogen being dry and non-reactive does not have detrimental effects. Therefore, filling tyres in nitrogen has become an appealing choice for many vehicle owners. And that's not true either, because tyres are made in air and they're designed to work in air. They're not designed to work in nitrogen, regardless. The nitrogen only doesn't have water vapor in it because the process of separating it from the air removes the water vapor. So the advantages of tyre inflation: longer tyre life. Tyres filled with nitrogen tend to last longer than those filled with compressed air, which is fine, but you don't care because you got rid of them years ago. The inert nature of nitrogen prevents chemical reactions and can break down the rubber over time. This leads to improved durability and extended tyre life. It may well do. But do you really care? You won't have them anymore. You'll be on your next 3 sets of tyres by then. This is true, but the NSTSA has stated in a previous paragraph that the time this takes makes it negligible over the tyre's life. Besides, the outside of a tyre is subject to wind, rain, sun, and that nasty stuff, air. You know, that stuff that fills your lungs every time you breathe in and out. Less frequent in reinflating, and this is coming from a tyre expert. Being a larger molecule than oxygen, nitrogen doesn't escape through the rubber compounds as quickly as oxygen, which is true, which means that the tyres won't deflate as quickly, which is also true. But it's not saying by how much, is he? This is also true, and see the CR report. But the issue with a stupid statement from a guy who states that you don't need to check your tyres as often is air is 0.00008 picometers smaller than nitrogen molecules, and that means you'll lose 1.3 psi over 12 months less than nitrogen. That is 0.108 psi every month. Improved fuel economy. Nitrogen tyres maintain their inflation pressure more consistently than compressed air tyres. Consistent pressure means that rolling resistance, which in turn enhances the fuel economy by using nitrogen. You can potentially save money on fuel. Potentially. There's a key word, potentially. If you save $1, this may also be true, but if you save $1 a year, you'll be doing yourself better than most people. A much better option is to keep the pressures correct and save much more money than using nitrogen in your tyres. Better handling. Nitrogen-filled tyres are less sensitive to temperature changes. Yes, they are. That is a true statement. As a result, they provide more consistent handling, especially during extreme weather conditions. Whether it's a scorching summer day or a freezing winter night, you can count on nitrogen tyres to deliver stable performance. Well, I say bullshit to that. The only reason nitrogen is better than air is because air contains water vapor, where nitrogen does not, because it is removed in the process of extracting the nitrogen from the air. The reason is because water is removed from the process nitrogen goes through. Nitrogen still expands at the same rate as air, plus neither of these can possibly make a car handle better when the tread is on the outside. Reduce corrosion. Due to its dry nature, nitrogen does not encourage corrosion in metal components. This is particularly beneficial for vital parts of your vehicle, such as wheels and brake rotors. Nitrogen air inflation can extend the life of these components and reduce maintenance costs. How the hell does a brake rotor reduce corrosion due to nitrogen in a tyre? It's in air. See the last statement regarding water content. The outside of a tyre and rim are subject to air, wind and rain all the time, yet they don't corrode. So why the hell would the inside corrode? It's got the same paint on it, you dumbass. Disadvantages in nitrogen tyre inflation. Sorry, I was having a bit of a rant there. Compared to compressed air, nitrogen is typically more expensive. This is the cost. And this is the disadvantages in nitrogen tyre filling. The additional expense comes from the process of extracting nitrogen and removing impurities, oxygen, moisture and other trace elements to ensure a higher purity level. It's not oxygen, moisture and other trace elements. It is oxygen, argon, moisture and elements, not trace elements, saying that water is half the bloody tyre. Around $5 per tyre to fill, or maybe 8 to 10 in Australia. Most service stations do not offer nitrogen tyre inflation. Finding a nearby tyre facility that provides this service may be challenging, depending on your location. Why would you need to find one? Doesn't nitrogen stay in your tyre longer? Funny that. This is because they're likely not sell any. More likely. Leak. While nitrogen-filled tyres experience slower leakage compared to compressed air-filled tyres, they can still lose pressure over time. And they do. See the CR article. The conclusion. The benefits of nitrogen tyre inflation extend across different vehicle types, making it viable options for all. Bullshit. For those seeking improved tyre longevity and better fuel economy, nitrogen tyre inflation can be worth the additional cost. You're paying the money and then you're sending it to a bloody tip to sit on there and stay there for years because you had nitrogen in it. Rots from the outside in, not from the inside out. Pay money. This guy's either been forced to be by his greedy boss or he's just an uneducated idiot. Either way, he's totally wrong. This is finally from the UK, the Automobile Association, the AA. Should you fill your tyres with pure nitrogen? Nitrogen might leak more slowly, but you still have to check your tyres regularly. Fact. Some tyre specialists now offer to inflate your tyres with pure nitrogen, but they will charge extra for it. Fact. Purified nitrogen has been used to inflate tyres on aircraft and racing cars for many years, but does it really make sense for the ordinary car tyre? No. The air we breathe and compressed air normally used to inflate tyres is mostly nitrogen anyway. 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen and 1% other gases. For passenger cars, this claim means that pure nitrogen seems to be less corrosion because, unlike the air, there is no moisture in pure nitrogen, slower rate of pressure loss, because the nitrogen molecules are larger than the air they've replaced. My tyres can lose air through the lining of the tyre because of their faulty or dirty valve, because they have a puncture, through failure of the seal between the tyre and the wheel rim. Pure nitrogen might leak more slowly through the liner, but you still have to check the condition and pressure of your tyres regularly. Fact. And then when you're going to fill them up? Back at the tyre place. Corrosion is unlikely anyway, because normal compressed air, because the outer tread band of the car tyre contains steel. The amount of moisture reaching it from the inside is minimal. To change to nitrogen, the air already in your tyres has to be removed first. True. Obviously, they've missed out on the fact here that it cracks the rubber. There will usually be a one-off charge per tyre, but once filled with nitrogen, future top-ups would have to be with nitrogen if any advantages are to be maintained. Overall, while accepting the possibility of purified nitrogen being a benefit in certain applications, we don't think that the cost and possible inconvenience are justified for normal possible passenger car use. Aircraft and motorsport. At cruising height, temperatures may be as low as -40, and any moisture in aircraft tyres can freeze, causing vibration and balance problems when landing. Well, that's not true, because the tyres are not exposed to the outside air, they're inside the fuselage, so they can't vibrate. Whilst true, the amount of water contained in the tyre is usually in the vapour form, and therefore it is minimal. It can be 0% if you inflate in a dry area, on to 4% in a humid one. Hardly the block of solid ice that is only at altitude. Once the plane is landing, any ice would melt long before the plane landed anyway. The only reason aircraft use nitrogen is because of the risk of oxygen increasing the ferocity of a fire, and no other reason. Pure nitrogen is dry, so eliminates this problem. This is an incorrect statement, because only the reason pure nitrogen has no water is because of the process to remove the other gases also removes water vapor. So nitrogen is not dry, nitrogen processing dries out the nitrogen. So to summarize, anyone with a sense and capability of doing research could only agree with my sentiments here. Anyone arguing these points is just fooling themselves. The last time I made a video, I had someone telling me that the humidity in the Northern Territory was huge and they use nitrogen because of that. Well, all I can say is outside of your tyres are subject to the humidity plus the wind plus the rain and the sun, and they don't corrode. Why would they corrode on the inside? I hope you see past this scam, as John Cadogan says. The tyre companies are busily dry humping your legs for $5 per corner of your car, plus a spare wheel if you have one. So it's $25 American, $50 Australian. If you are stupid enough to pay the money, then go for it. But just remember this, 95% of cars on the road have air in their tyres. And you don't see them queuing at tyre shops to get the corrosion removed or the tyres changed or even drained. There's a reason for that, but maybe you are just so easily fooled. If you are, why not join my Patreon? It's far cheaper and much better benefit for you anyway. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.